The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Hello, Ian.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Podcast.
Thank you.
This is Ian McKerrow. He's the finance director of the Edinburgh Whisky Academy. So we're about to learn all about that wonderful drink. So, Ian, how did you get involved in the Whisky Academy?
Well, I mean, I guess it was actually started by my sister, and I previously worked with my sister because I set up a whiskey festival when I lived in Hong Kong.
Uh-huh.
I guess that was my first sort of business that I set up, and my sister was working in whiskey at the time, and so she helped me quite a lot with that. And then I moved back I left Hong Kong in 2016, and my sister had essentially just set up the academy, and so I then it was fairly natural for me to sort of join her because she was just launching the business, and so I basically helped her as our sort of two skill sets, I guess, are fairly complementary, and so we ran our first course, I guess, at the end of 2016. So we've been running courses for just over 3 years now.
Wow. And what was it that got you into wanting to teach people about whiskey? Because there's one thing to be involved in the industry, but there's quite another thing. I want to educate people about whiskey.
Well, I guess our family has quite a long connection with history. Our mother is a McKinley, and the McKinleys set up their own whiskey blending business in 1815. And our father used to run Glenmorangie, famous single malt whiskey.
Yeah.
And I guess they've always been slightly sort of innovators. Obviously, the McKinleys were one of the first blending families. My father introduced the cask finish range of whiskies in the 1980s and early 90s, and that's very sort of across the board. All whiskey brands now, they have their different cask finishes.
They do.
And I think, well, it is more my sister's idea to set the academy, but what's really incredible to me is that there's actually Scotch whiskey is obviously a huge industry, employs lots of people, and is a big contributor to the economy, but there's actually no independent sort of accreditation for anybody who's wanting to sort of certify themselves or to learn more. There is a master's in distilling, which you can do if you want to become a distiller, but that takes about 2 years. So there's nothing really below that level for whether it's people who are dealing with whiskey consumers or whiskey consumers themselves, or sommeliers or bar managers if they want to really learn more about whiskey. There are plenty of sort of courses which none of them are actually accredited. So what's important for us is that we're independent from any brand.
Right.
So we target ambassadors who get very good brand training, but they don't really have a great deal of knowledge about the whiskey making process. And so we're independent from any brand, and we're also accredited by the Scottish Qualifications Authority, which gives us quite a bit of credibility with people who take our course.
Okay, so if you really properly want to learn about whiskey and get a proper qualification in it, and it's independent, as you say, so you're not aligned to any particular brand, then you are about the only place that somebody can go to. Is that right?
Basically, I mean, there are quite a few. I mean, the different brands do good training courses themselves, but I mean, inevitably they're focusing more on their own whiskey making process.
Wow, that's incredible. And I hadn't realised the history of your family. So whiskey is literally in your blood.
Yeah, pretty much is, yeah.
And I've got to ask you this, Ian. Do you like it?
Yeah, I quite like it. I'm not. I don't drink lots of whiskey, which, to be honest, I think is probably quite a good thing because you meet a lot of people in the industry who probably like it a bit too much.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I certainly like whiskey.
Right.
But yeah, that's
fantastic. And what's it like working with your sister?
Yeah, I mean, it's as I said, we sort of have slightly complementary skill sets. I mean, I've got two older sisters. I couldn't really work with my elder sister because she's quite similar to me. Whereas my sister that I work with is, you know, she's worked in the whiskey industry, so she knows more about whiskey. So she sort of creates the courses and deals with the experts who writes the material. Whereas I'm better with in speaking to people face to face, and I'm better with figures. So I'm in charge of the sort of finance side.
Oh, right. Okay, I see. And who attends these courses? What sort of people do you get coming along?
Well, we target the whiskey industry and the hospitality industry, and we have had, like, we do have trained quite a few ambassadors from different distilleries. So Macallan, we've just done a private course for their senior ambassadors at their distillery in Speyside. Wow. And we've also, we've trained quite a few people from White and Mackay, Chivas Brothers, a few of the smaller distilleries as well. And on the hospitality side, we do get sommeliers. Quite a few sommeliers come, and some bar managers and people who sort of work in the whiskey trade, like whiskey retailers, a few distributors, and then inevitably quite a few enthusiasts who just want to, you know, there's so many sort of whiskey geeks out there. They just want to the beauty about whiskey is you really can't learn too much. There's always something more that you can learn.
That's amazing. And do they come from all over the world?
Yes, I mean, I think that's probably one of the things that's almost surprised me the most is the amount of, you know, on our course we typically have a maximum of 15 people. I mean, quite often about half the course come from overseas. Wow. And people do tie it in with visiting other distilleries, but a lot of people actually travel to do our course specifically. So we I mean, we get quite a few from Europe, but I mean also North America, Hong Kong, Singapore, a lot from China, India, obviously, and so I mean, it is really. And I mean, it's great to see that, you know, so many people are, because we haven't really done a huge amount of marketing the last couple of years because we didn't really have any funds, but people seem to find us, I think, because there's no one else quite like us in terms of being independent and quite in-depth training on Scotch.
Fantastic.
Whiskey.
And so for listeners out there, they're interested in whiskey. They can't quite get to, I assume your courses are in Edinburgh, are they?
Well, we host the courses actually at a place called Arniston House, which is a fantastic 18th century sort of mansion just outside Gorebridge, which is about half an hour drive south of Edinburgh. And so we recommend that people stay in Edinburgh, and then we arrange transport from the centre of Edinburgh close to Waverley Station. We bus people to the course venue, which is quite close to Glenkinchie Distillery. And so on the first day of the course, at the end of the day, there's a private tour of Glenkinchie, which I think works really well. And we like to think it's more of as well as learning about whiskey, it's actually an experience because the mansion where we host the course is actually featured in a few films, and it was one of the venues in the Outlander series, which I'm not an Outlander fan, but I know that a lot of people are, and so it's a lovely old house, and the catering that we provide is quite good quality. So it is, as well as you'd learn about whiskey, it's also a bit of an experience in itself.
Yeah, it sounds like a great Christmas present. And say, for example, somebody can't make it to Scotland. I believe you've just launched your online courses now, haven't you?
Yes, we have. Which, I think we're quite excited about it. We've obviously invested quite a bit in actual the course creation, so it is quite interactive, and there's a few videos of our course instructor in a distillery, and I think and that's exactly as you say, for a lot of people overseas who can't really either afford or can't manage to come to Scotland, they can take the online course, which I think is an excellent introduction to whiskey and the sort of distillation process. And we are going to be coming out with sort of more specific topics on our online platform.
Brilliant, that's fantastic. And you do a gin one as well, gin course, don't you, too, I believe?
Yep.
Yeah, great, something for everybody.
Exactly. No, I think the gin course it's a completely different sort of consumer base. It's slightly cheaper course, and it's held at the Botanic Gardens in the centre of Edinburgh, which is it's a perfect venue to learn about gin.
Brilliant. Well, I'm tempted. Okay, Ian, so what's been the scariest moment so far in running the business?
I mean, I think for me, obviously in charge of finance, I think. Cash flow for us is always. I mean, it's still it's a bit of a struggle. We've recently taken on our sort of first full-time employee. Apart from my sister and myself, we've got a part-time salesperson as well. So it's more. I mean, it's basically cash flow and managing that, because. I mean, I think a couple of other people may have started an independent whiskey education course, but it's actually quite tough because the brands don't necessarily support you too much. So I mean, that's the sort of, I guess, ongoing issue for me, is just managing the cash flow.
Yeah, and that's a challenge for any business, isn't it?
It's I guess,
Well, what's the advice? So you've got a finance background. Many of our listeners are entrepreneurs and they don't have a finance background. I think your sister's quite lucky having you in the business. Well, what's your advice to business owners who don't necessarily, have that bias towards finance?
Well, I mean, it is so important. I mean, I think when my sister was, because she set it up, she was like in charge of sort of paying the bills, etc. I mean, she was actually very quick on paying a lot of the bills, which really, we can't do because our customers luckily the people who take our course, pay up front. But now that we're starting to do sort of private courses, these sort of customers, like say Macallan, do not pay you immediately. No. They'll only pay you on their terms, which is typically a month or two later. And so as a result, in terms of managing our sort of cash situation and working capital, we only pay our teachers, etc. At the on the sort of last couple of days when they have to be paid, because I mean, I think in terms of management of resources, that's the only way we can survive, because we don't get paid by customers until sometimes we actually have to chase them to make sure that they do pay us.
Okay, no, that is really sound advice. Actually, I think some business owners are a bit scared of having debt sitting, but
Exactly.
but as long as you were within the payment terms of any invoice, okay, and that's
exactly.
That's good advice. Stretching, making the cash stretch further, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
No, okay. And what do you love about running the business?
I mean, I just genuinely enjoy meeting the people on our courses and actually getting really positive feedback from them. I mean, pretty much everyone has given us very positive reviews on what they've learned, because our teachers are actually experts who have sort of been there. They've been distillery managers, or they work in the industry, and all the people who attend our courses do it because they're interested in whiskey, whether it's their job or just their passion. And the feedback we get from them is consistently sort of 5-star, and they just love the experience. And for me, I think that's the most rewarding thing that I find, is that we're sort of providing a service that people love and really take a lot from.
I should imagine some of them make lifelong friends that they meet on the course as well, do they? They keep in touch afterwards?
Yep, I mean that is one of the benefits I guess that we sort of didn't quite appreciate beforehand. But yeah, I mean, when you spend 2 days, or we now run the 2 courses sort of concurrently, so it's like 3 days, and they really do get to know other people who are exactly the same, very passionate about whiskey, and they do make good friends on the courses, and they do keep in touch, I think.
Yeah, that's quite a nice byproduct. Lovely. Okay,
it is,
what's the downside, Ian? What do you hate about running the business?
I guess it's, I mean, my background's more of a sort of corporate background, so I mean, there's obviously quite a bit of uncertainty as an entrepreneur, which it has its upsides and downsides, but it's obviously just the not having a regular salary or a regular paycheck, which is, I mean, obviously that's part of the entrepreneurial journey, I guess, and it has plenty of upsides in terms of I can, if I don't want to go into the office, I can take the day off, but obviously that you can't do too much of that when you're starting the business. So
somebody once asked me, they said, "Oh, you work from home, Jane?" I said, "Yeah, I do work from home." They said, "Are you not tempted to sit on television?" I said, "No, because if I don't work, I don't earn any money." So
exactly.
there's no
catch-22.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're going to say to the kids at the end of the month: no food on the table this month, kids, because Mum's been watching Judge Judy for a month. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like zero income flowing in to motivate you, is there, Ian? It's
no, exactly. You got to pressure on yourself.
Yeah, you do, definitely. Yeah, and that myth that as an entrepreneur you can take a day off whenever you want, it really is a myth. It's actually probably more the opposite way around, is that you can't really take a day off whenever you want because there's nobody else to do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so who is
I guess it might sound a bit cheesy, but I mean, I think our father actually did an incredible job, and only really since setting up this business, we realized that obviously he left the business a while ago, but I mean, our weight, our sort of name carries quite a bit of weight with a number of the people that we're sort of meeting, and that in itself, I mean, he doesn't really help us with the business, but just the fact that people know of him, even though he left the industry, I guess 25 years ago, does I mean, I guess, as well as obviously providing, a good start to life for us, that's increasingly I sort of realised what a sort of good career and good job he did when he was working.
Wow, that's incredible. You're not the first entrepreneur I've interviewed that said it was their father or their mother that inspired them, and that's lovely to hear. And it's lovely to hear he's still around, and I'm sure he's very proud of you and your sister.
Well, I mean, I hope so. He doesn't really say that much, but I mean, hopefully he is. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he's Scottish, so they don't really give compliments easily, do they?
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's wonderful, lovely. And what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning, Ian? What gets you fired up?
Well, I think it is just making a difference. I mean, I do enjoy, a feeling as though I'm doing a good job, but I think for the first time I sort of feel I do genuinely feel that we are creating a sort of education service that's very much needed by the Scotch whisky industry, which I still sort of I'm surprised that no one else has done this. And so you'd say for like wine education's huge. The WSET was set up, I guess, I don't know, about late 60s, in the 70s, and that's a huge sort of global success. And I think that's maybe the sort of template that might that we're sort of aiming to sort of emulate in terms of whiskey consumption's obviously huge globally, but the whiskey education has not been ignored, but it's definitely sort of there hasn't been much structure to it.
Okay, and that's quite interesting actually, is that again, some business owners and entrepreneurs think they have to invent something new. They think they have to reinvent the wheel, and it's not true. That when you see a model working in a similar industry, or obviously the drinks industry is the same, but it's a different product you're talking about. Actually, it's a really good thing to model what's already successful, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. No, I do think so, and I think I mean, we do meet people maybe from abroad who are sort of continually surprised that sort of there's not that much of a education program for whiskey lovers. So that's what, hopefully in a few years we'll be a bit further down that road.
And what keeps you awake at night? What worries you?
I think it's sort of what I've alluded to already. It's cash flow, and that's still an issue. I mean, I think we won our first award last month.
Oh, fantastic!
Which was Pioneers in Whiskey Education, which is great, because that's exactly what we are. So I think we're definitely making progress. We've obviously trained Macallan, and within the industry, I think we're developing a bit of a reputation for ourselves. But we're still, cash flow is still an issue. Certainly, with us having invested in the online platform and not quite yet sort of generating too many sales from that, then it's still a sort of quite a precarious position.
I can recommend a good digital marketing agency if you need one. But I've got a couple more questions, but just to say, if people are wondering, they can go to the Edinburgh Whisky Academy.com. So it's the Edinburgh Whisky Academy.com. There are no hyphens, anything like that, and they can have a look and see what the course is about. And I believe the online course is only £120, isn't it?
Yep, no, that's right. The introduction to whiskey certificate is £120.
Great.
Which I think is a fantastic value. And there's a gin school online as well, which is £90. So I think both courses are excellent. Yeah,
they are. And what a great present for somebody at Christmas time.
Yeah, no, I quite agree. And we do have. You can give a voucher on our website, which is ideal for a gift.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's a couple of Christmas presents sorted for me, so that's good. Okay, so if your business was a person, what kind of personality would your business have, do you think?
I think it'd be quite adventurous and quite ambitious. I think a lot of people think. Well, I think whiskey slowly, is making progress. But I mean, a lot of people think of whiskey and they still think of sort of, it's an older man's drink. I think it's a much younger demographic that we're sort of targeting, and that's the kind of people that are particularly overseas, where there's not so many sort of connotations of whiskey being a sort of older person's drink. So I think it's definitely. We are trying to be sort of pioneers and trying to break into sort of misconceptions about whiskey, and actually just make sure that people who do love whiskey, because so many people do love it, actually understand a bit more about what they're drinking, and that will basically increase their appreciation of it if they know much more about it.
Definitely. And those two adjectives you used, adventurous, and I can't remember the other one. Was it ambitious?
Ambitious.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say traditional and steeped in heritage. So that's really interesting that actually there's a whole new generation coming through who think of whiskey very, very differently to perhaps the way we do in the UK. That's fascinating. Yeah. Okay. Good. Everybody knows about gin. It's very trendy and all the rest of it. But I think you're right. I think we're at the early days of whiskey. And if I was, because I like whiskey, so I'm quite biased. But if I was coming to